Persia. For more than 2,000 years, this land, nestled between the Zagros Mountains and the shimmering Persian Gulf, was the cradle of civilization itself. The empire of Cyrus the Great once stretched from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River. Poets wrote of its glory. Conquerors dreamed of its riches. By the 20th century, the ancient empire had become the modern nation of Iran. And beneath its desert sands lay something that the entire modern world would kill for. Oil. Black gold. The fuel of industry. The blood of armies. The currency of power. And it was this oil, more than any ideology, more than any religion, more than any single leader, that first drew the United States and Iran into each other's orbit. The story of how two nations went from allies to enemies, from tension to open conflict, is not a simple one. It is a story of broken promises, hidden operations, revolution and revenge, nuclear ambition, and the slow, grinding machinery of geopolitical rivalry. It begins, as so many modern tragedies do, not with a bomb, but with a secret.
The year is 1953. Iran has a democratically elected prime minister, a man named Mohammad Mossadegh. He wears a rumpled suit. He sometimes cries in parliament. He is, by all accounts, a gentleman. But Mossadegh has done something that terrifies the West. He has nationalized Iran's oil industry, taking control of the oil fields away from the British Anglo-Iranian Oil Company and giving it back to the Iranian people. In London and Washington, alarm bells ring. The British government calls it theft. The Americans fear that a weakened Iran might fall to Soviet communism. And so, in the summer of 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launch a covert operation, codenamed Operation Ajax. Street protests are funded, newspapers are bribed, military officers are turned, and within days, Mossadegh is overthrown in a coup. He is arrested. He will spend the rest of his life under house arrest. In his place, the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, is firmly installed on the peacock throne. The Shah is pro-Western. He modernizes Iran. He invites American companies in. For 25 years, Iran is America's most important ally in the Middle East. But among the Iranian people, a wound has been opened. A democracy was destroyed. A people's choice was erased. And the man who did it, in their eyes, was Uncle Sam. That wound would never fully heal.
By the late 1970s, the Shah's Iran is a land of contradiction. Glittering hotels and boutiques line the boulevards of Tehran. But in the slums, in the mosques, in the universities, fury is building. The Shah's secret police, Savak, tortures dissidents. Inequality is rampant. The foreign presence feels to many Iranians like occupation. And from exile in Paris, an elderly cleric in a black turban delivers sermons that electrify millions. His name is Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. In January 1979, the Shah flees Iran. Millions pour into the streets, weeping with joy. Khomeini returns to a country transformed. Iran declares itself an Islamic republic, the first of its kind in the modern world. America watches, stunned. Its most powerful ally in the Middle East has become, overnight, a revolutionary theocracy that calls the United States, in Khomeini's own words, the Great Satan. And then, just 9 months later, everything gets worse. On November 4th, 1979, Iranian students storm the American embassy in Tehran. They take 66 American diplomats hostage. The world watches in horror. For 444 days, those Americans are held captive. A rescue mission fails catastrophically in the Iranian desert.
With formal diplomacy dead, the rivalry moves into the shadows. and onto the battlefield. When Iraq's Saddam Hussein invades Iran in 1980, launching a brutal 8-year war, the United States quietly backs Iraq, providing intelligence, economic aid, and looking the other way as Saddam uses chemical weapons against Iranian soldiers and Kurdish civilians. Iran, surrounded and outgunned, vows to fight to the last drop. By the late 1980s, the war has spread to the Persian Gulf itself. Iranian forces mine international waters. The U.S. Navy begins escorting oil tankers through the strait. And then, on July 3, 1988, the USS Vincennes, an American warship, shoots down a civilian Iranian passenger aircraft, Iran Air Flight 655. All 290 people on board are killed. The United States calls it a tragic mistake. Iran calls it murder. The wound deepens. When the Iran-Iraq War finally ends in 1988, neither side has won. Nearly 500,000 people are dead. Iran emerges exhausted, isolated, and consumed by a singular conviction. America is its enemy, and America must never be allowed to feel safe again.
Through the 1990s and into the 2000s, Iran quietly pursues a different kind of power: nuclear power. Iranian officials insist their program is purely civilian, for electricity, for medicine. Western intelligence agencies are not convinced. Hidden enrichment facilities are discovered. Centrifuges spin in underground bunkers. In 2003, after the American invasion of Iraq, Iranian leaders observed something alarming. The United States has just destroyed a country that did not have nuclear weapons, while North Korea, which does have them, faces only negotiations. The lesson, some analysts believe, is not lost on Tehran. After years of sanctions, secret sabotage, including a sophisticated computer virus called Stuxnet, widely attributed to the US and Israel, and dramatic negotiations, a historic deal is struck in 2015. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, is signed. Iran agrees to limit its nuclear program. International sanctions are lifted. For a brief moment, the world exhales. But the peace is fragile, and in Washington, a new president is about to tear it apart.
In May 2018, President Donald Trump makes a decision that reshapes the entire Middle East. He withdraws the United States from the nuclear deal. He calls it the worst deal ever negotiated. He imposes the harshest sanctions in history on Iran, a campaign he calls maximum pressure. Iran's economy convulses. The currency collapses. Inflation soars. Ordinary Iranians suffer. And Iran responds. Iranian-backed militias begin attacking American forces across Iraq and Syria. Oil tankers are struck in the Persian Gulf. A U.S. surveillance drone is shot down. Tensions spiral. Then, on January 3, 2020, a moment that brings the world to the edge of war. At Baghdad International Airport, an American drone strike kills General Qasem Soleimani, the commander of Iran's elite Quds Force, the most powerful military figure in Iran after the supreme leader himself. Iran goes into mourning. Millions fill the streets. The supreme leader weeps on live television. Iran promises revenge. Days later, it fires ballistic missiles at U.S. military bases in Iraq, injuring over 100 American soldiers. The world holds its breath, waiting for the war to begin. It does not yet. But the clock is ticking.
Through the Biden years, Iran and America continue their shadow war. Nuclear talks resume, then stall, then collapse. Iran accelerates its uranium enrichment to levels never seen before, just a technical step away from weapons-grade material. Meanwhile, Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria, forms what Tehran calls the axis of resistance. When Hamas launches its catastrophic October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, killing 1,200 people, the entire Middle East detonates.
Israel goes to war in Gaza. Hezbollah opens a second front from Lebanon. The Houthis begin targeting international shipping in the Red Sea, disrupting global trade. And in January 2024, Iran-backed drones kill 3 American soldiers at a base called Tower 22 in Jordan. It is the highest American death toll in the region in years. The Biden administration strikes back, hitting 85 Iranian-backed targets across Iraq and Syria. But the wider war is no longer theoretical. It is arriving.
In the spring of 2025, Israel, having dismantled much of Iran's proxy network, turns its gaze directly toward Iran itself. Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated. Air defense systems, painstakingly rebuilt after previous Israeli strikes, are degraded again. The proxy shield that protected Iran for decades lies in ruins. Hezbollah has been shattered. Hamas leadership is dead. The Houthis are under relentless bombardment. Iran stands more exposed than at any point since the revolution. And yet, its nuclear program continues. In June 2025, Israel strikes Iranian nuclear and military facilities directly. Iran retaliates with ballistic missiles. And on June 21st, 2025, the United States enters the war directly, bombing 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. The road that began with a secret coup in 1953 has arrived after 7 decades of grievance, revolution, proxy war, and brinkmanship at open conflict. The ancient land of Persia and the most powerful nation on earth are at war.
History does not move in straight lines. Wars do not begin with a single shot. They begin with decades of choices, some made in fear, some in arrogance, some in genuine miscalculation. The United States and Iran might have been different. There were moments, many moments, when the road could have turned another direction. In 1953, if a democratically elected leader had been allowed to stand. In 1979, if hostages had not been taken. In 2015, if a nuclear deal had been honored. But history went the way it went. And today, in the ruins of what might have been, 2 nations stare at each other across a gulf that 70 years of mistrust have made very nearly uncrossable. The story of Iran and America is, in the end, a story about what history does not move in straight lines. Wars do not begin with a single shot. They begin with decades of choices, some made in fear, some in arrogance, some in genuine miscalculation. The United States and Iran might have been different. There were moments, many moments, when the road could have turned another direction. In 1953, if a democratically elected leader had been allowed to stand. In 1979, if hostages had not been taken. In 2015, if a nuclear deal had been honored. But history went the way it went. And today, in the ruins of what might have been, 2 nations stare at each other across a gulf that 70 years of mistrust have made very nearly uncrossable. The story of Iran and America is, in the end, a story about what